So I have a couple new families to show you guys today. This shouldn't really take very long. I wanted to get some feedback on the hold downs because there's a couple of different ways that I could modify them to make the annotations easy for you guys to use and move around how you want, and just sort of show you how those work. As a little bit of background, the reason that we're modeling our hold down families as opposed to just doing them as annotations in like a foundation plan like we have been before, is that I have been hearing through the grapevine of coordination mix-ups. And the idea is that we'll place our hold downs, and that will allow us to coordinate between the foundations and the mods easier and be able to just make sure that things are matching up. Whereas if our hold downs are just detail items inside of a foundation plan right now, it's harder to do that sort of coordination. So that was where the request came from. So I have had Robert here working on all of these hold down families under structural stiffeners when you load them in. And they are under Families Blue Standard hold downs. So that's where you will find them. So these types, or these families, were created based off of old, or not old, but details from SGH on previous projects. So I'm not sure if this represents all of the hold downs that we need, all of the hold downs that they spec. So if there are missing hold downs that need to be created for your project based on the engineering, let me know and I will make them, or probably more likely have Robert make them. But this is what we have for now. It includes angle hold downs, which for those of you who, oops, what am I looking at? Many of you have probably seen this thing before. This is the angle hold down. We also have the 2- and 3-hole versions of those hold downs, and I know that those were created recently. I think the side breeze was the first time that I saw those being used on a project, whereas previously it was just a series of the 1-hole angles. So yeah, I'm not sure. Kevin, do you know, are we switching over to that as a standard, or is that just a side breeze specific thing? Or
I think it's right now side breeze specific. I don't know. Well, Loft House has them as well. I think a lot of it is going to have to do with site loads as well. So, I mean, just having them in the library is good.
Okay. Yeah, so just go off of whatever the engineering is for your specific project in terms of which ones of these you use. Aside from the angles, we have this one that I've called the embed, which gets embedded in the concrete foundation wall and then attaches to the outside of the mod. And then the rest of these, which are the strap ones, attach fully on the exterior face. So yeah, here's the embed. And let's do one of these straps.
Is there a way to modify the height of that?
Yeah. So when you place it in your project, you can either place it in plan view or an elevation or section view. Although if you place it in an elevation or section, you have to, it's using the wall as the work plane, and so you have to manually define where that goes vertically. Whereas if you place it in a plan view, so level 2 for me in this project is the top of this wall. This would actually be your top of foundation wall inside of your project. Oh yeah. So place on work plane. Make sure this is set to level 2, and then that'll automatically. I think I gotta spin it around. And then make sure this gets onto the outside face of the wall. So yeah, if you place it in plan view and say edit work plane and select the top of your foundation wall, then it'll automatically be placed in the right place vertically. The other thing that I wanted to show you about these is similar to the way our electrical families work. We have an annotation inside the family, and this is the callout code that is a type parameter inside the family, or the G is the callout code. I didn't know, how we wanted to name these things. I think I did the angles as A1, A2, A3, and then just did the rest of them E through whatever the letter is. If we want to come up with a naming standard for these or a callout code standard for these, I'd be more than happy to put that into the families. Right now, there's no variability in where this annotation is placed. So there's the annotation offset parameter inside the electrical families that allows you to move this around. It has been suggested to me that we do a similar situation with this, so that we can move it around in case your drawings get a little bit messy. The other option that we have is to not have the annotation placed inside of the family and just have a structural stiffener tag. So that way you would just place these and say tag, and then you would tag it and move that tag wherever you want it to go. It's an additional step, but it does give you a little bit more control over where those things are placed. So does everybody have an opinion one way or the other as to which would be easier given your design workflow?
Hey, Luke, it's Steve. I was going to say that I think it might be nice to have the tag outside of the family, because I've noticed, for example, that the generic annotations sometimes tend to show up in views where you don't necessarily want them, because because you might, for example, have other generic annotations in a view. You might not. One of the examples that I run into problems with sometimes is like wall sconces that have the lighting tag built into the family. And I might have other generic annotations I want to appear in that view, but I can't necessarily hide them for that light fixture. So it's kind of a trade-off sometimes, and I think that there might be a lot more instances where that could be problematic with the structural families. So I think it'd probably be easier to keep it outside of the family, but I don't know what other people's opinions are.
Okay. Yeah, on that point, the way that I think, or when I think you have those sorts of issues is when you want a family or the model geometry of the family to show up and the annotation not to show up. You still have the option, if you don't care about seeing the model geometry, to just hide the entire family category. So in this case, if you don't care about structural stiffeners, you would hide the structural stiffener family. But yeah, I understand that there are situations where you want the model geometry to show up and not the annotation. And when you have the annotation inside of the family, you can't separately hide it in those types of scenarios. So that's a good point. And I understand why that happens with the sconces, and I'm trying to think of a situation where you would want the model geometry for a hold down to show up, but not the annotation for that hold down. And nothing immediately springs to mind, but yeah, your point is well taken.
Shop drawings and structural permit drawings, you don't really need the annotation because they don't share.
Okay.
I think it's just better to be flexible more than automatic.
Yeah.
In general.
And that's a good way of setting up the trade-off. It's either it is automatic or it's more flexible. Yeah. So in this case, more flexible sounds like it's winning. And actually, from my perspective, it's easier too. It allows for easier families. Like I don't have to add reference planes and nest families inside of others. So if you guys are okay with
you just have to load your structural tag.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other questions about these families?
How do you make them shorter?
How do you make
the strap shorter? You don't need all the hilties.
So right now you can't. I've just made, or Robert has made, separate straps for the different lengths which were specified in the drawings, and in the structural drawings they were labeled as medium, heavy, whatever. Okay. And I assume that it has to do with the nailing pattern of having 28 10D nails is a certain strength ratio. So I didn't add in that flexibility to change it. I assume that would be sort of based off of the structural design. So yeah, so that's how it is. And there's a couple which are really similar. Like I know Heavy and Heavy 2 are almost identical. They're like a 2-inch difference or a couple of nails difference. So I'm not sure if we've gone through the process with our structural consultants of saying, hey, can we have standard details, and here's the details that we've used in the past. Can we just pick 10 of them to use rather than having them redesign them every time we give them a project? So if we want to go through that process to simplify things with the structural engineer, if that hasn't been done, and to my knowledge it hasn't, then maybe that's a worthwhile thing, and I'll just take the standard ones that we use and have those in the library.
How do they schedule?
ISE's Heavy and Heavy 2 strap Holddowns?
Yeah, so Heavy and Heavy 2 were the heavy hold down on 2 different projects, and they were slightly different, so I included them both. But yeah, we might be able to standardize that with ISE.
Hey, when we put the hold down angles 1, 2, and 3 in there, do you get ankle bolts that you could dimension on your hold down location plan?
Very good question. Yeah. There's no physical bolts, but in the plan view, this black dot is a detail item, and there is a reference plane which runs right through the center of that. The other thing that's really difficult on these is that some of the hold downs, I don't know why it only gives you a super tiny little thing to dimension to. I tried making the reference plane bigger, and it's just not coming in. I think it's because of the small amount of physical geometry you have in. So if you're out here and it doesn't give you anything to snap to, I know it's a little bit of a pain, but just zoom in and it's there. But yeah, so there aren't physical elements, but there are reference planes for making those sorts of dimensions. Do you want the threaded rod in there, Jeff?
No, that's fine right there, just like that. Something I can dimension on the hold down location plan, and the only thing is whether or not I should be hiding the angle when I'm doing the hold down location plan.
Oh, Jeff, you're just full of good comments today. Not that you're not usually, but all of the model geometry in these hold down families has been placed on a subcategory so that you can hide the angle without hiding that detail item which represents the threaded rod. So if you go into structural stiffeners and model geometry, so you can turn that off, and now it only shows you the annotation and not the whole.
Cool.
And I don't remember, so the families that we started from were listed as structural stiffeners rather than structural connections, and I don't remember why we created the angles like that, but I think there was a good reason for it. Kevin?
They don't schedule the same. Like, we started off with the stiffeners, like the W-flange stiffeners and the HSS stiffeners, and we wanted them all to show up in the same schedule on the job drawings. And then it was kind of a pain in the ass to put them on different family categories and then have different schedules.
Okay.
We can split them up, and we just need 2 different schedules. It's fine. It's just different.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know that it matters.
Did these schedule on the side breeze, Kevin?
What's that?
Did these schedule on the side breeze?
Yes.
Yeah, I took the side breeze angle families and created these families from those. And I think, yeah, that was already, they were already able to be scheduled in the side breeze.
I didn't schedule the straps, but I did schedule the hold down.
Yeah, you wouldn't do the straps, right?
Yeah.
What's the
schedule actually? How do they show up? Did they show up with like the Simpson spec or whatever?
Who, the straps?
Yeah.
They should be set to come out as stuff by the site GC, not provided by us. They'll never be provided by us.
Yeah, but we still need to have them schedule correctly, right? In like our foundation plans and hold down plans. Like the STH or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I know, so we have, let me just open one of the families. That's the best way to get to it. Yeah, so it looks like I need to add the shared parameters for all of the stuff that we want to have.
Like a manufacturer number.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, okay, so I need to go back through these and add all of the shared parameters to have brand and manufacturer number and, you know, all the things that we want to show up on our schedules.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think like these hold downs, the angles, you can, under manufacturer, you can probably just say blue, right? Blue provided.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll make Robert do that.
Do you also have the what do you call them? The Simpson hold downs? They're not straps. They're like brackets.
Oh,
garages.
yeah. So the only ones that I've made so far, or again, Robert has made, are the ones that connect foundation to mod, but I didn't do the ones that would be like a site-built lower level hold down into the foundation.
Well, those.
But we use, you're saying we use
them in the garage, yeah.
Okay, so that's ones we don't have that we'll have to make. Okay.
Simpson might not even have the model on their website.
Okay.
Are you required to put this in all of our projects now?
I don't know.
We're supposed to be doing a foundation hold down plan anyhow. So rather than using drafted elements, we could be using the model elements.
I think that's a yes.
If we've
Right?
already
Am
done
I missing something?
plans,
You have to retroactively do it.
yeah.
I think that's a PA question. I don't know. I mean,
You would need them.
I'm not going back into RUK and putting them in there if that's what somebody thinks.
You need to resubmit on that.
I would say anything after RUK maybe, but anything before RUK, no way.
yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know.
So the other thing that would be nice for these hold down brackets is that it had a keep away, because and that needs to communicate to the shop drawing crew that the floor framing needs to be kept away from that area. Because it drives through the steel.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But the rim joist for the floor framing needs to be kept away a certain distance so the site crew can get access.
You're saying for the angles which are on the inside.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So Luke, what is the this is Carl. What is the G? There are two rectangles next to the G's and the H there.
This rectangle?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just been our standard annotation for how we show a strap in our hold down plans.
But is it to be filled in with a, okay, well, the one I was doing, the only one I've ever dealt with has like a bold, dash parallel to the foundation wall. So that's why it was unfamiliar to me. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, this is how I've drawn it and seen it on other projects. Is this unfamiliar to people, or does this look normal?
Well, I was just about to ask about that too, Jeff. Is that something that like is standard to like Simpson ties or ties in general? Like that's a standard annotation.
That's a blue thing.
Sorry.
Okay. I mean, is there a standard thing that we should be using rather than our own crazy thing?
Most
that I know of, but
most of the ISV drawings, they just throw a little hex note on there or point to something, and it's called the strap tie down,
Oh yeah, there's that one.
What's been
tossed around, dimension anything?
What's being tossed around up here is like, it seems like we have like 3 or 4 different annotations for this. And I don't think anybody really cares what it is, but it should probably be the same thing, right?
Well, I would say what's there now, shown on that screen, might get in the way of other things, perhaps like dimensions or notes or whatever. The one that I saw and used or whatever is kind of tight to the foundation and a clean, bold line. That's why I bring it up.
When we put these into our model, where's this drafted symbol? It's not gonna be showing up everywhere, right? It's gonna show up when we have the hold down location plan, or is it gonna be sticking out of my wall when I do the entry level plan?
No, if you turn off your structural stiffeners, then it won't show up. And then based on, if we're switching over to have the text note with the letter inside of it as a tag rather than an annotation, I can add whatever symbology we use to represent the strap. I can add that to a subcategory. And so that actually allows you to still show the model element of the stiffener but not show the annotation in views that you want. So yeah, that'll actually give you more flexibility in terms of whether these lines show up or not, or whatever our annotation ends up being.
So Luke, in your visibility and graphics or your templates, you have to turn off the structural stiffeners in all of them?
Yeah, those will, you'll have to turn that off in your visibility graphics or your view templates, which control the visibility and graphics for those things. And I think when we switch over to the tags, the way that'll look is you'll have structural stiffeners, model geometry, we'll add the keep away geometry, so that'll be another subcategory, and then I'll create another subcategory for annotation or something like that, so you can turn that off separately from turning off the model geometry. So those will be the subcategories that you'll have to control in views that you do or do not want that stuff to show up in. All right. Any other comments, suggestions?
Well, I have another question. How do these interface with the details themselves? You're locating them. The project that I've been working on, there's separate details besides the overall foundation plan that sort of show in higher resolution where these are placed and how the sill gets notched. So, are we gonna zoom into these and create those details, or use the drafted details?
I think we're still going to use the drafted details, which are standard. I think you'll have to just make sure that whatever your dimensions of your model elements match up with the dimensions of those drafted details. So I think we have fairly standard locations for all of those details. Like for a short and fixed corner, we usually have 4 threaded rods which are spaced, in a particular way. And I think you would just look at that detail and place your model elements according to that detail, as long as your project has that standard spacing on it, which you should get from structural. Is that a project structural thing?
So there's actually 3 types. So either be 1 threaded rod, 2 threaded rod, or 3, and that's something that ISD determines. And then I think Robert has been consolidating all the standard details into the all structural file. So those details should live there now. Right? We still need to rework them, but we're trying to compile them all from projects, recent projects, and the in progress folder into the structural.
Okay. Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, there's an all structural file which has drafting details for most of our structural drawings. And up until now, the foundation connection details have not been a part of that file, and that's been a little bit of a gap. So we're trying to close that gap and have those details inside of that file so you can pull them into your projects from there. And that file, well, it's getting really big, so I think we should probably have a discussion about how to break out that file. It's something ridiculous, like 300 megs right now, so it takes forever to download the first time.
It's all drafted?
Yeah, and it's all drafted views, but it's like basically all of the drafting views from all of the products. So yeah, so what we should probably split out that file into a couple of different ones, so that if you're only looking for one drawing, you don't have to open a 400 meg file. But for now, we're just sort of compiling everything together into that file, which lives. I'm not going to open it because it'll take forever. But ignore that. You guys should be going there. Where it's like all structural drawings. Yeah, structural drawings. So these are 2 files. One of them is all of them in one orientation, and then all of them in another orientation. And these aren't complete as far as my understanding is. They've been sort of added to as needed by some designers. So these should probably get a little bit more of a systematic review and make sure that we have everything we need. But this is definitely the first place to check if you're looking for structural details that you need to bring into your project. And if something that you need isn't in here, let me know, and I'll try to figure out where you can get that stuff from, or I don't really know. I feel like I always end up being the center of all of these things, but yeah, I don't really know what to do with it. But Victoria, I know you've been working on this, and I think Sen and Paulus have been in there also.
I think multiple people have been in it, so we've just been updating, like if we needed an origin or breeze house. I mean, the origin, breeze house, glide house. I mean, a couple others are already in there.
Okay.
So essentially, it was just exported files from CATIA to rework to have the reduced structural set. So they're all the projects that currently have the reduced structural set, and they're listed whether they're seismic or not. It'd be like a ORL6 or ORL1. And I think it's just been kind of like you said, as we needed, we've been putting in the products in there.
Okay. So if something is not in there and someone needs it for a project, they should draw it in that file and save it so that the next person has it?
Yeah, so they'll be creating it in there.
Okay.
Can we save it in there?
Structural set.
Yes, yeah. You can save it in there.
It's not under blue.
No, it's on the server. It's on the Revit server,
yeah.
So you can modify anything on the Revit server.
Also, for that all structural product structural file, it's really, really big because a lot of stuff, like it's an imported model category versus like just making like a detail item out of an axon. Like that would, and stuff's grouped, and sometimes groups takes up more model space or more file space than like if it wasn't. Sometimes these are groups, and when you ungroup them, the file size goes down. So I think there are some things that we could do to make that file get a lot smaller too.
You know, when I hear that, it sounds like you're volunteering.
No. But when things are also grouped, it's also because some details are shared across multiple products. So if you ungroup it, then you'll have to change it in every single product.
Is there a way
Not
to
everything.
explode a detail? I mean, once you group it and get it to the right view and draw it and annotate it, is there a way to like just pull out the 2D stuff, have it in a drafting view, and then dump all the other?
Yeah, totally.
They are all like that.
Oh, they are.
The text has been redone. All the annotations are recreated. It's been deleted out. But I think it's just a process. Maybe the files need to be purged better, like we need to maybe go through.
Okay.
Views or something.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go through and take a look at that and see if there's any easy cleanup that we can do, and maybe doing the cleanup along with doing the reorganization. That can be sort of a combined effort.
From here. They may be.
Okay. So there's one other thing that I would really like to get to today. Gavette, are you on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, I'm going to pass control over to you, and you can talk about the seed models. I'm so glad somebody else besides me is talking about seed models now.
Yeah, me too.
That sounds totally excited. I switched it to Design AA. I assume that's you.
Yeah. Can everyone see my screen?
Hit
Oh.
Yeah.
Now?
There we go.
Okay, so today I wanted to give an update on progress that Luke and I have done on seed models. So the plan is to revive some of the old product log processes that we set in place when we were working on seed models in CATIA. It was Kevin Dang, Victoria Chu, Chris Ryan, and I set up a system for project feedback, basically on the product models to get back to the standard product. So, sorry, I am having a really hard time. So on the S drive here in the Revit server, I made a seed documentation folder for Luke. Basically, this is just functioning between he and Luke right now for him to be able to access some of my comments on the balanced seed model, the first seed model that we built out in Revit. So I've divided up the folder into these two categories that Luke had discussed, primary products and secondary products. Primary products being our main products like a balanced breeze house, origin, that doesn't need accessory structure. And the secondary products being the garages, glide pod, breeze pod, and I threw in carport because there was an SDRF for it, but I'll say that's the lowest priority seed at this point. And so here I started basically just reviewing the balanced seed model for correctness regarding just being true to the standard balance, checking against the SDRF, checking against an issues list that was created by Tom Lee after for Hoey after he got some feedback from the factory. And this Excel spreadsheet is slightly modified from what we used when we were working in CATIA, but everything in black needs to be addressed. Things in yellow are pending approval, meaning this is an item I've heard of from the factory that needs to be vetted, either confirmed by the factory or kind of reviewed by design whether or not we want to implement this change. And green being Luke's already completed this task. So I reviewed it on this day. I have.
Why does the factory want the casework to be on top of the subfloor?
It was a request that we received from Woody. I think my first answer is I don't know, but I think it has to do with the order of operations. I think they used to lay the subfloor, then lay the finished floor, and then the casework on top of it. But it seems that they want to lay the subfloor and then the casework and then the finish. And so
I have it in yellow because that still needs to be confirmed by Jason, Boss, and Woody. But it is going to affect all of our seed models where the casework is. So
will that be set with an offset from the subfloor then of like 5/8 of an inch or 9/16 of an inch? We'll be able to do that with our base cabinets. Base cabinets go on the floor, right? Wall cabinets on the walls.
I think right now, how are the Revit base cabinet models?
Base cabinets use the floor as the host, and I think they use.
The floor is split though, right? So you should be able to attach it to the subfloor.
Well, we have a level for the subfloor, and so you can use the level as the host rather than the actual physical object as the host. But yes, they are split right now into two separate objects. So you can either use the subfloor object or the subfloor level as the host and get those in the right spot.
Yeah, so we still need to figure that out. I don't know who the person is to figure that out. Maybe it's me. So I think I'll probably just end up trying to figure this out.
Sounds like an RFI on Procore.
To who? Jason Boss?
To Jason Boss.
You're gonna get an answer in 24 hours. You know.
That's right.
Actually, I think I'm just gonna call Jason Boss's cell phone number. Get the answer from him. But
again,
so right now,
what does that matter on the model that we give them? You know, I don't even understand why that even matters.
Well, if we do implement that change, are we editing the boundary of the finished floor to be around the casework so that they don't order extra?
There's that, and also it seems like the base of the casework would have to increase to 4 5/8 rather than 4, so you can get your top of counter to be 3 feet above finished floor.
Right, or you have to do an offset from whatever level you're putting it in on. The other thing is the cabinets don't even sit on the floor. They sit on these 4 little legs each cabinet, right?
Yeah, they sit on adjustable legs and then they have clips.
Right. I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's just one of the items. Basically, the point of this blog is to document what is changed from seed model release to basically, we have a situation with this first seed model release in which there are some projects that people are working on. I know that Sen, Steve, and Amy are working on balanced models based off of the seed. And what I found in the balanced seed model is going to have to be addressed in your models before it goes to the factory. So this document is also for you guys to refer to make those revisions in your projects before it goes to the factory. Because Luke and I don't have the bandwidth to make sure that like all of these changes are addressed in every project that bifurcates from the seed, but we want to implement this process sooner so that this doesn't have to happen on every single project. That the model gets done, then it gets checked, then it gets released, and if there are issues, it's not like a laundry list of issues. It's more manageable. I know it's a moving target, but we're trying the best that we can to kind of get our standard seed models under wraps. Oh, and so we have this Excel document, and for Luke, what I included in here is the balanced SGRF, which I checked against. This is the balanced POE issue list that was created by Tom Lee, which was very helpful. And then in my Excel document, I refer Luke to certain examples. Instead of having him hunt for them, I just include the pages from the projects in the balanced examples so that he can open up the sheet and see exactly what I'm talking about. Like, for example, in the balance, there are some specific ceiling compositions, and also some need to change from the standard because of some feedback that we got from the factory that the recessed can exceed the depth of the framing. Here Luke can see this is a ceiling composition of the standard seed. This is not, was not the case in the model. And so that's where we are. One of the things that we did add, that we revised from the original sheet, is when Luke completes a task, he's going to mark the date so that we have a sense of, if we keep breaking off projects from the balance, we have a sense of what those projects, what issues were addressed in those projects and what weren't, based off the date that it was bifurcated.
That'll let us know, you know, let's say I was really industrious and got through all of these changes today, and someone broke off a seed or broke off a project model from this seed tomorrow. They wouldn't have to make all of these changes to their project file, but Sen and Amy and Steve, who broke off before the date that this task was completed, they would have to make those changes to the project model. So it's an easy way of knowing which projects already have these done and which projects need to have these done.
So I don't know if it's in this document, but is there a way of tracking that? So like say when Steve and Amy broke off from the balance, I think they were the first to break off from the balance seed, they have like the date that they broke it off, and then the next person to take it says like, this is a project, this is where it is, this is when I broke it off.
Yeah, Luke and I talked about that. If something like that would have to be a separate document for this, from this here, because the point of this document is really just to address issues in the model and make sure, or pinpoint issues in the model and make sure that those are addressed. And
so I can see
how
through the Revit Server Administrator application, I can see when a central model was created on the server. And I know that you guys can't see that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know. Where do you want that information to live so that it goes with the project?
Why not make a new tab here? Just list off all the projects.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might be nice to be able to reference.
Add a new tab. That has a running.
Yeah, that's all right. Are you okay with that, Gavette?
With like client, date,
yeah,
designers,
it can be.
broken off.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay.
So
besides the balance, what are the other ones that come out? Like maybe not seed models, but like at least like a list of issues like that.
That's a really good question. That really just is an issue of man-hour. Right now there's just two. Well, one man and one woman. And our next task is to address the Breeze House seed model, and we've reached out to Claire for help on that because she has a sense of what everyone's working on and who's available to help the model. But there is currently not a system in place to check, kind of go through this check with all of the products and create a log. Like I can create a dummy log that doesn't have information in it yet, but as far as trying to find issues in all these products, it's been kind of a struggle. I don't think that there was in any document an issues list for each product that maybe in Tom Lee's head. And yeah, so just to open this.
Actually, while all of the designers or most of the project designers are on the call, the next one we're doing is the Breeze House, and if any of you have been working on a Breeze House, can you just email me and let me know, because I'm looking for a project to take and create the seed model from. So yeah, let me know which, well, if you know the orientation, that would be really helpful. And the more standard, the more better, which means the less we'll have to walk back to get to standard. So yeah, if anyone has worked on a Breeze House project recently, shoot me a quick email with configuration and just generally how standard it is, how many customizations you put into it.
LA Model Home?
Sounds like a good one.
Now that answer tile is standard, you can go to LA Model Home.
No, don't even open it.
The orientation is way out of line, though.
You're out of line.
You can also check the change request board for issues.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be a carry through from change request board into the seed model tracking form. Never met the guy.
Yeah.
And there's like the design implementation board.
Kevin, when you were working on this, what were your resources for hearing feedback about issues in the standard models except for this Excel doc that you were working on with me and Victoria?
I would walk over to your area and ask Mike what the biggest problems of the day were, and then put them on the log.
I think I also logged.
Yeah, I mean, other people on the project, well, at that time, other people on the project team just like added stuff to it, and then I would go through the CATIA models and fix things as I had time.
I remember that. Yeah, that's the first thing I know.
Okay.
So maybe it's a good idea to roll out dummy logs for each product, and then the designers that are working on those different products can just sort of add issues to the Excel doc that they've run into, and then those can be sort of reviewed as you or Luke or whoever has time.
Probably a separate file.
I mean, I would just be careful because those lists tend to explode like really quickly. I mean, each product will have easily a few dozen issues.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's a problem. I don't think the list exploding is a problem. I think not addressing the issues is a problem. So I think Ryan's suggestion is really good. My plan was to do that with all of the products in the product folder after I kind of get things figured out with this Excel file, because this is like a seed, and rather than like, you know, make copies of this way too soon, I was going to see how it works on the balance and then make copies of it for the rest of the products.
But they wouldn't have to be empty logs. You could just put makeup error on all of them. So.
Is that a legit suggestion? Yeah, no, I think that Ryan and my suggestions are good ones. They don't have to be empty logs. I just wanted to work out this Excel spreadsheet before duplicating it for the rest of the products.
So how do the seed models work now? Do they have, are there going to be seed models per like orientation?
Yeah.
As
So
well as mirror?
the balance. Well, I'm thinking of those as the same thing. A mirror is a left or a right orientation.
Right, except for the breeze.
Well, the breeze are probably going to be 4.
Yeah, the breeze house.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to maintain one balance model rather than a left balance model and a right balance model. And depending on how much work needs to be done to make a left version from a right version or vice versa at the time of the project breakoff, it may be easier to do that at the beginning of a project if it takes a couple of hours rather than maintaining 2 seed models. Again, the breeze house, of course, is a little different because of the orientation, but yeah, the plan right now is unfortunately to maintain a left version and a right version. So any of these changes that we have for a seed model would have to be picked up in both the left and the right versions.
What about the structure?
You mean which steel goes in?
Yeah.
So
is that another set of seed models?
I think it'll just be a model group or a generic model family that you can just switch out rather than having multiple seed models created. Do the structural changes affect the architectural significantly?
Sometimes. Especially when you switch from like a non-seismic to a seismic, it affects like column sizes and beam sizes and stuff, which could affect where you can place windows and doors.
Right. Okay. I mean, I really, really don't want to make a new seed model for each one of the different structural options. So I think if we go, we'll have to pick, this is our standard structural option, whichever one we use the most, and then if your project doesn't use that load case or whatever, then you'll have to make those changes on a project-by-project basis. And we should make a list of what those are.
To do them all seismic.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest the same thing. I think we should do them all seismic because then the steel is going to get sized smaller and you have more room between a rough opening and the steel if that's a tight situation, which in the balance it's like 8 different spots.
We just have to communicate that to the engineering team when they get it.
And you have to also be careful.
No, we'll have to swap it out before then, but...
Yeah,
we'll swap out the steel, but we should design to the most restrictive case.
Yes.
Right.
Sometimes windows and doors, when it's seismic, like I know for the glide house, when it becomes seismic, along the long wall, it actually has more room on the side. So, yeah.
Okay.
Because of the way the corners meet, it's different. So it actually lets the doors fit better.
Okay.
So then for the glide house, we would do the non-seismic.
Well, is it more restrictive on one wall and less restrictive on another?
Yeah, so it's like opposite. It switches. So then on the seismic, the short walls are more restrictive, but then the long walls are more open. So it's kind of a mix.
Okay. Yeah, we should just make our standard architectural just takes into account the most restrictive case in each area. And I know Victoria and Gavette, we had talked about which steel models we have and possibly needing to export them and get them into Revit files that we can work with. And I don't remember where we landed on that or how we're moving forward.
So for the balance, I can help you re-export the steel because I have Katia, and so that's going to have to happen in Rhino. I'll do the revisions in Rhino, separate the mods, move the steel as needed, and I'll re-import it into Revit. For the other models, I think Victoria, I don't know what Victoria, I think Victoria said that the latest ones are on the S drive where we keep our seed.
Yeah, I listed the ones that I had exported. Some of them were a while ago, but they still should be the latest. The only problem is I don't have V6 anymore, so I can't export, but...
you tell me where they are, I can do it.
I think I have it too.
Okay.
So yeah, if we can just get an inventory of what we have and what we need as a starting place, that
yeah, because we've just been doing the same thing as the structural file. We've just been exporting the Katia steel as needed. But we can go through that again to see which ones we still need.
Where does the steel live in the S drive?
It's here.
We're going to need a loft house steel frame real soon.
Blue mods. Steel from Katia.
Glide. Have cricket.
Lower.
Standard.
It's just not as deep. No. It's not like a steel frame or anything, it's all wood.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
So I have a question for all of you project designers. How and when do you know which steel a project uses?
When you see the conceptual design plan?
So you get that with the SDRF when you start the project?
Did you know whether
Yeah. Sorry, guess.
Can you repeat the question?
It should be indicated in the code research from the very beginning.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had that happen either.
Yeah.
Before SDH is supposed to return it to you?
Yeah, I think it's like typically like at state, I guess, for SGH to look at. Maybe I'm going based on my crazy load case, but there were quite a few changes to my actual steel for sty because it was a giant snow load. But so, and that was a state, like that was during state process. Although I guess
how have you taken care of that in your model?
Well, it's a side breeze, so the side breeze steel is in Revit. So I've gone in there and updated the members of each, within that Revit model, and it's a link, so it automatically updates.
When did you do that?
What's that?
When did you do that?
During state.
I mean, like what day?
Like 2 months ago or like a month ago?
What day? Yeah, about a month ago.
Oh man. Well,
why?
It has changed a lot in a month.
Like the side breeze steel?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, the point is I guess like this is a totally custom thing anyway. So my steel is going to look almost totally different than a standard side breeze would anyway.
Well, but there's still maybe changes to the standard side breeze steel that you'll need to pick up based on what Kevin is doing.
Someone could let me know where that is. I could do that. That would be good.
All right, I'll send you an email after this.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Kevin, can you copy, this is Steve Wilson, can you copy me too on that and Paul Termon?
Yep.
Or Paul Tierman. We're working on Termon. Sorry about that.
I was like, did we hire someone else?
Paul's behind a side breeze. He used a pen name for that one.
Yeah, but Andrew, it's a good point that came up for on my project, even a pretty basic seismic balance. We had to remove 2 Holddowns because of where the site build connector was coming in at, and Paul Kasadian was talking about sizing up some of the steel because of that. And I immediately was like, no, we can't do that because I don't know how to change the steel or relay that kind of information to the factory or the engineering team. So it's definitely a good question, how we
the only way that we can capture that right now is to edit the shop drawings directly.
Exactly, which we don't really have control over at the moment. I mean, at least from a design standpoint, and that came up at state permitting. So, yeah.
Well, so you can change the annotation though, right? Like you can call it out as a different member size, but in the drawing itself or the model itself, it wouldn't show up as a different size member, right?
It wouldn't. I mean, I have no control to edit the structural model, so we don't have any of it built in Revit.
So, Luke, side question, since Steel 2.0 is probably on indefinite hold, is there a reason that we're waiting now on making Revit steel models?
I think the engineering team is taking that on as a part of their scope. Okay. And I know from talking with Jason Boss that it is high on their priority list. So I think we deal with things for right now with the CATIA models that we have. But I don't want to put work into doing that because the engineering team already is.
Sounds great.
Will we get that from them?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I assume we will. I don't know when, but
it's probably going to be months and months from now. I think that, actually, I don't know. I'm not going to say.
At very best, they'll probably draw things that we haven't got right now. And at worst, they'll never get around to doing the breeze house.
I mean, I guess I can't say this with certainty, but they're not looking at building the steel in Revit. They're looking at using another type of software.
Correct.
Yeah, from what I heard from Jason, it interfaces well with Revit, and I took him at his word. And didn't really ask questions, so.
Yeah, it does. It can be brought in, but I don't know its capability of, once you bring it into Revit, if you can modify it within Revit, or you have to pull it back out into the other software and modify it from there. So, yeah, I'm not sure about workability. But
I'm pretty sure you can edit the members in Revit. That said, you'd probably want them to edit it in Tekla first, so there's no confusion there. But all in all, it could just be linked and it gets updated whenever the Tekla model is updated.
Right. Yeah, it seems pretty good in terms of compatibility. So.
All right. Revit, you have anything else?
I don't have anything else. What I will do is after this meeting, I'll send out a link to where the seed documentation files are located. And I just ask that the people who are working on models that were taken from the seed take a look at the Excel sheet and address the issues that apply to your project. Hopefully we can kind of keep this up. I think it's a pretty ambitious task, but I think it needs to get done.
All right, thanks, Revit.
Thanks, Luke.
All right, that's all I've got, guys. Remember to send me any, if you need more hold downs. I know you need one, Kevin, but if there's anything else in those hold downs which you need, which isn't represented, let me know, and I will make changes or farm out the changes for those hold downs that we discussed.
Awesome.
Thanks, Luke.
All right, thanks, guys.